We've had a long break from Formula 1. It's been 4 weeks, but we're back, and we're headed to Max Verstappen's home race. It's round 15 at Zandvoort. Spa was only 44 laps because the circuit was just over 7 kilometers long, but Zandvoort, that's on the other side of the coin, with 72 laps of a 4.259 kilometer circuit. It's a very fast, high downforce circuit, which is actually relatively hard to overtake on. The circuit speed has been helped with multiple banked corners, including turn 3 and the final turn leading onto the pit straight, which was reprofiled some years ago. The driver with the most wins around Zandvoort is actually Jim Clark with 4, bearing in mind that Formula 1 only went back to the circuit in 2021. Ferrari, though, are the constructor with the most wins, with 8. There are 14 official corners with 2 DRS zones. The first DRS zone is the best overtaking opportunity down the pit straight into turn 1, but there is another DRS zone between turns 10 and 11 heading into the chicane. This isn't as much of an overtaking opportunity, although of course you can overtake there, but it also helps ensure that you get close enough when starting a lap to utilise the DRS down the back straight. Unsurprisingly, Max Verstappen is the last winner of the Dutch Grand Prix, and with the Red Bull's current form, he'll be hoping he can win his home race once again. This weekend, the Pirelli tyre offerings are the C1, C2 and C3 tyres, the hardest tyres in the available range. Let's talk about braking. There's been a lot of talk over the past week about the change to the technical regulations from the FIA. The important change reads as following. Any system or mechanism which can produce systematically or intentionally asymmetric braking torques for a given axle is forbidden. At its core, and I have to say I'm no expert in this field, but I believe it would be a system whereby you could have a different brake bias on each wheel on a given axle. So say for instance on your rear axle, you could have a different brake bias on the inside tyre and the outside tyre, which could help you in certain circumstances. Once this dropped though, everyone assumed Red Bull had been up to no good, and a couple of F1 journalists kind of fanned the fire when it came to this. A lot of people suggested this is the reason Red Bull have had a drop off in performance in recent races since Miami. And I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but that's kind of wide of the mark. This change to the regulations only comes into effect for the upcoming race in Zandvoort. So if someone was utilising such a system, they would have been free to continue to do so up until this weekend. Not only that, but the FIA have confirmed it's nothing to do with any teams breaking the rules, but just clearing up the regulations for 2025 and beyond. There are some caveats to this though, that I'm sure people are thinking. First of all, the FIA, well, they're not always truthful and transparent with us. And I would say it's a little bit unusual for something so specific like this to be added to the regulations without a team first thinking of it. There are 2 scenarios here. One is that a team was doing something wrong. They were utilising a system that was maybe a little bit outside the rules and the FIA found out, and as such they were told to change it. That's at least somewhat possible. Still doesn't guarantee that it was Red Bull though. But the Red Bull drop-off doesn't really make sense, because if they were using such a system, why would they have immediately taken it off when there was no requirement to do so? You could say maybe they went back to a standard braking system because they were testing a new system. You could say all sorts of things, but the most likely scenario in my head is that a team has approached the FIA in regards to such a system, maybe for next year or beyond, and the FIA have said, actually, no, that's not allowed, and they've then tweaked the rules to clear up any loopholes to stop any other teams from doing that. Mercedes approached the FIA when they were developing the DAS system, for instance. To me, that's the most likely scenario. I don't think Red Bull were doing anything wrong, and even if they were using a braking system like that, that's not cheating. F1 is about pushing the boundaries, it always has been. Push the rules until you're told you're over the line, and then you're pulled back. That's the way it's always been, and the way it always will be. Just moving on to upgrades, Mercedes, they're expected to go back to their new floor that they brought in Spa, but they reverted to their old spec because they were struggling. So they're expected to bring that floor, and that's expected to be fitted to both cars. They believe the issue in Spa was down to setup rather than the floor itself, so that should maybe hopefully give them a push forward. Ferrari, on the other hand, are not expected to bring any upgrades to Zandvoort, so we're probably looking at Monza and ahead. Just to be clear as well, the factories can't stay open during the summer break. There is a mandatory shutdown. So yes, Formula One hasn't been around for the past 3-4 weeks, wherever it's been now, but that doesn't mean that teams have been diligently working, constantly developing new parts. It doesn't work like that. This is a purposeful shutdown during the summer break. So any upgrades that teams bring will have been planned at the beginning of the season. They've not just been pushing them out in the factory for the past 3 weeks. And there we have it. I'm looking forward to Zandvoort. Formula One is back. I'll see you there.